7 p.m. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Commissioner Davis?
Here.
Vice Chair Biani?
Here.
Chair Tombe?
Here.
Commissioner Stanek?
Here.
And Commissioner Wilson?
Here.
All right, let's go ahead and move to approval of minutes. So the first approval is for the special meeting on February 28th. I'm looking for a motion to approve.
So moved. I second.
All right, to a vote. Great, motion passes unanimously. On to the second approval of minutes for the regular meeting on March 1st. Looking for a motion to approve.
I move to approve.
I second. Vote. All right, and motion passes. Now on to ceremonial matters. The first item is age-friendly cities and presentations. For those of you who are in the audience, if you have something to speak to on this, you can also put a blue card in. Great.
So
Come
I
on
think
up.
that's me.
Yep.
So I'm Richard Adler, and I'm a 19-year resident of Cupertino, and I've also worked in various aspects of aging for about 30 years. And tonight what I want to talk about is the activity that took place about over the last year and a half to get Cupertino designated as officially as an age-friendly city, and that has happened. And I guess the thing I want to say up front is getting this designation, although it's a nice thing, it does not mean it is not an award for doing everything possible to be an age-friendly city. It's actually an acknowledgement of a serious commitment to work toward becoming age-friendly. So that's kind of in the way of background. So let me just kind of run through a little bit of history, some of the history of this, and then where we are today. And then I want to thank a whole number of people who've contributed to this process. I've led the task force that did this. And, one of the things about Cupertino that I really like is, Cupertino has a very, I think, good government, but it also has a very active civic sector. And every time I come to a city council meeting, I'm always amazed by, the winners of the science award or the spelling award or some, marvelous volunteer effort that's underway. And this is a citizen's effort. It was, we had liaison with the city of Cupertino, but this was a citizen's effort. And I'll explain a little bit more about how that happened. So just quick background, this probably won't come as a shock to anybody, but the world as a whole is aging, but it's aging in a rather dramatic way. This chart shows that for almost all of human history, the number of young people greatly outnumbered the number of older people. And somewhere around 2018, 2020, those two lines are going to intersect. And for the first time ever in human history, there are going to be more older people on this planet than younger people. There's really just two reasons for that. One is that people are living longer, which is a wonderful thing. And the other one is that women aren't having as many babies. So the fertility rate drops. And so you put those two together, you get more older people and fewer younger people. And in fact, it's a global phenomenon. So this shows the increase from 2006 to 2050 of the percent of the population 60 plus, and you can see in every region of the country, particularly in Europe most dramatically, but also in North America, the percent of older people is increasing dramatically. And what's interesting about this is when you think about how we plan as a society, the sort of the paradigm of planning is kind of the family, mom and dad and the kids, and maybe grandma and grandpa are out somewhere. But if you look at things like zoning, like economic policies, it sort of assumes that people are young or middle-aged and that these older people are off there somewhere, but have not really been really very central to the planning process. And this effort is really an attempt to try to shift that balance a little bit. So in 2010, the World Health Organization, WHO, an agency of the United Nations based in Geneva, Switzerland, established something called the Global Network for Age-Friendly Cities and Communities. And the idea was to connect cities, communities, and organizations worldwide with a common vision of making their communities a better place to age. And it was in response to global population aging, and it focuses, although it's a global network, it really focuses on action at the local level that fosters the full participation of older people in community life, promotes healthy and active aging. So that's the real goal of this thing. It started in 2010 with a couple of cities, but as of January 2018, this network now has more than 541 member cities in 37 countries that involve more than 179 million people worldwide. This network is really a kind of a global platform for information sharing, and I was saying that the first city in the United States that actually got the designation was Portland, Oregon, and the first city in the Bay Area was Los Altos, California. And fortunately, as I'll explain later, there happens to be somebody who was living in Los Altos who's kind of one of the world-class experts on making cities age-friendly, a woman named Annabelle Pelham, and she was really one of the kind of inspirations for this project. So what exactly is an age-friendly community? So this diagram, if you're going to remember one thing, this is probably the most important slide. So this little flower, the way I think of it, there are 8 components that make a community or a city age-friendly, and they divide into 3 categories. One is a physical environment that is appropriate for an aging population. That's housing, transportation, outdoor spaces and buildings. Then the provision of services, community support, health services, and communications and information. And then the third category, which I would call inclusion and participation. Social participation, respect and social inclusion, civic participation, and employment. So it's 8, and these 8 components really have been a kind of a guide star for all the work we've done up till now and the work we'll do in the future. So this isn't just a nice picture, it really is our guide. So these age-friendly communities were growing all over the country and all over the world. And then about 2 years ago, a woman who works for the county of Santa Clara named Diana Miller, who runs the senior agenda, woke up one morning or somehow came up with the inspiration that Santa Clara County should be the first county in the United States in which every one of the communities in the county became age-friendly. So there are 15 municipalities ranging from Palo Alto in the north to Gilroy in the south, and she said, let's all get together, both the county itself, San Jose, Palo Alto, Cupertino, Campbell, et cetera, and so she created this program called Age-Friendly Silicon Valley, and the goal was to become the first county in the U.S. to have each and all of its cities become active and innovative members of the Age-Friendly Network. So in addition to having this idea, what Diana did was hire Annabelle Pelham, who runs something called the Center for Age-Friendly Excellence, or CAFE, to work as kind of a technical assistant for us, and she worked with every one of the 15 communities. In addition, we got assigned an intern at no cost to us who helped coordinate meetings and recruit people and so forth. So they really, gave us the guidelines, the steps that we should go through, and did a lot of facilitation as we went along. So here's just in a nutshell the process we went through. We started by forming, a community task force, and that was back in about October of 2016. Then at about that same time, the county put an online survey on that was organized around those 8 components to find out what people felt their needs were. And so there was both a countywide response to that of, I think, several thousand respondents, but we also got a breakout of what Cupertino residents were saying. And we tried to also promote this survey in Cupertino. Then we conducted 2 focus groups that Annabelle moderated. One was with older residents, that was in December 2016, and then with a group of age services providers, so professionals in aging, and that was people like the Sheriff's Department, the West Valley Community Services, Park and Recreation, St. Jude's Church, the Forum, et cetera. So, we look at it from the standpoint of the residents and then from the standpoint of the professionals. We then got a summary report that kind of summarized the feedback. And again, we did that going through each of those 8 areas. And from that, after summarizing the results, we identified a set of priorities for action, which I'll share with you in a moment. Then, by May of 2017, we submitted our application to the World Health Organization, and then we waited and waited and waited. And I don't know, I think over in Switzerland, they had all gone off on vacation for the summer, and I was getting very frustrated. In fact, at one point, I volunteered to go over to Switzerland to see if I could speed it up, but nobody wanted to send me. But finally, sometime in the late fall, we got the official notification that we had been designated as an age-friendly community, I guess in December at the very end of the year. So that was the process. In terms of the priorities that we identified, there were 4, and I don't think these will be startling to anybody who lives in Cupertino. Number 1 was working to expand appropriate housing alternatives that will enable residents to remain in the community as they age. I mean, one of the things that we heard over and over is that people who live in Cupertino like it and would like to stay here, and they would like their kids to stay here. But, the economics are tough around housing. There's no silver bullet, but we identified that. And we actually, I think, will be doing some kind of sub-projects over the next year to explore some innovative approaches to housing, which I can talk more about. Secondly was transportation, and we are proposing to conduct a comprehensive survey of the needs of the residents of Cupertino, and again, focusing on innovative, accessible, on-demand models that may be implemented. And some of you may know there is an experiment going on right now funded by the county called RYDE, R-Y-D-E, that stands for something I can't remember. But there are some efforts underway, but they're small. Third, and this is the thing that I thought was really kind of unique to Cupertino, is this is a very multicultural community. And our feeling is if we do everything in English, we run the danger of excluding big parts of our population. There's a whole set of people who have arrived in Cupertino late in life. Their kids may have come and then they bring parents over. And these are people who are not fluent English speakers, who are not really well acculturated. And so we felt that Cupertino should make a particular effort to do outreach to these, it's not even minority communities, but diverse communities in the city to make sure that they are all included. And by the way, one good model is the Cupertino Senior Center, which really is almost bilingual. I mean, that they run programs in English and in Mandarin just routinely. And to me, it's one of the really great examples of that. And then finally, and this is one that is going to need some work, to identify and build a mechanism to guide and support the implementation of these recommendations and inform the City Council regarding development of programs and services with seniors. So, as I say, we don't want to just have a gold star and say, oh, great, Cupertino's age-friendly, but we want to sort of continue this effort as a group of citizens. And we're really now thinking about how to do that. So we filed an application. Mayor Savita wrote us a letter of support. And then, as I say, after waiting, it seems like forever, we got our approval. And then in January, we had a very nice ceremony right here where Mayor Paul presented us with a very nice proclamation, and we sort of celebrated. And here's our proclamation, which now hangs on my wall. That's sort of a kind of a nice, tangible symbol of our accomplishment. Another one, this is very nice, if you go to the World Health Organization's age-friendly cities site, there we are. Cupertino is listed as one of the 540, it's probably a bigger number now, communities that have received the designation. So here we are with the map of Silicon Valley, and what this tells us is every one of the communities, with the exception of Gilroy, now is designated as age-friendly, and Gilroy has its application, has submitted their application, and who knows when, but we believe that they'll get that as well. So at that point, we really will become the first county in the U.S. to become entirely age-friendly. And so what does that mean? Well, you do become part of a network. This actually, as I was preparing my PowerPoint this morning, this arrived in my email. I now get the newsletter from the World Health Organization with information about what's happening with age-friendly communities all over the world. So that's happening on the global level, but even more important, through the county, Diana Miller and her group has been organizing a series of collaborative meetings where we get the representatives from all of these cities together to kind of brainstorm, share ideas and best practices, identify challenges. And we were actually supposed to have a meeting next week, which would, I think, be the third in the series, but I just found out today it's been postponed. So that's the process we went through. We identified, we did a bunch of research, we identified some priorities, we got our gold star, and now we want to move forward. And so the last thing I would like to do is just acknowledge the people who contributed to this. I was the chair of the task force, but there were a bunch of other people who worked on this with us. And in addition to the citizens group, I also want to say thank you to Diana Miller, who was the kind of our leader, Annabelle Pelham, who organized this, Leanne Higgins, who was the intern who worked with us, Kim Fry, who was our gracious host. All of our meetings were hosted at the Senior Center, which seemed like an appropriate place. Meetings of the task force, the focus groups were all held in fact, now I've become a member, so I can park more easily there. It's just hard to park there without a little permit. So I'm now a member of the Senior Center. Christine Hannell also was supporting us. Mayor at the time, Savita, was the one who wrote the letter of support. And then I want to thank the current mayor, Darcy, Paul, and the whole city council who've been very supportive of this process. So that's what it means and where we are. And if anybody has questions or comments, I'd be welcome to hear them.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming in and giving us this very comprehensive presentation. We've, our own Parks and Rec Department or Recreation Community Services Department staff have been giving us updates, and we're very
Great.
happy that we received that designation, but also take very seriously what you mentioned in your presentation, that it's not just a nice sticker to have. It's actually, it actually means that as we continue planning on things like our Parks and Recreation Master Plan, that we
Yes.
do take all of these factors into consideration. And I know that the 4 points that you mentioned are things that are being heavily discussed in the city, and I know specifically our commission is also very committed to making sure that we have inclusive parks and recreation services for
Great.
the
And,
city.
and one thing we don't want to do as yet another task force is reinvent any wheels. So we're very interested in coordinating with the city, with your commission, and so forth. And I think, if we can do this in partnership, we can get further faster.
Amazing. That sounds wonderful.
Any other questions?
Oh, I just want to say thank you for coming. Being a senior citizen, and I'm also dealing with my elderly father who lives in Cupertino. He's 95, and so I can see how these things are really important, and especially the housing component. So
Yes.
I hope you can work with the city and the developers, and and just keep advocating for our seniors in our community. Thank
Well,
you.
and I think Cupertino sort of has this perception, part maybe because of Apple and so forth, as a city of young people, and it certainly is that. But, it does have a substantial and growing older population that we want to accommodate as well. And one thing I will point out is I've been working in the field of aging for about 30 years, and when I started, it was about them. Now it's me. So, we'll all get there. So this, in a way, I think what we want to work on is to make the world a better place for us all to age in. And, so that it's, and another way that it's talked about, I think is also important is it's community good for all ages. This isn't like, oh, let's just do good things for the old folks. It's creating an environment that works intergenerationally.
Wonderful.
I'd just like to say I did participate in one of the outreach groups, and Kim Fry managed that, and it was very enlightening, and I felt included, and we were talking a lot about housing and transportation, and these issues are hard issues,
They
and
are.
I think getting the designation is good, and I'm glad you pointed out this is not just a plaque we put on the wall. This is a process, and it needs to continue, and it's not over. This is really the beginning of our commitment to it. So I think that's really good.
Amen. Anything else?
I would just repeat what they said. So thank you very much for taking the lead on this, because you said it's a city of young people. In my neighborhood, that's a city of old people who all live in big houses that want to live in Cupertino and want transportation and go to the senior center. So I just want to.
Well, I think there is a discrepancy
Yeah.
between the perception and the reality.
I think so too. Well,
Yeah.
you're looking at a number of seniors right up here. So anyway, I
You
just
don't
want to
look,
thank you.
none of you look like you're seniors. It's-
Except, yeah, our leader. But anyway, I just want to thank you for taking it and encourage you to stay in the loop when it comes
Absolutely.
to our plan, the housing plan, the developer's plans.
Great. Thank
So,
you very much.
yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You bet.
All right, next up, we have agenda item number 4, which is the Healing Garden presentation.
It's really difficult to follow somebody so eloquent. I'm going younger day by day, by the way.
Good luck with that.
It's a very good presentation. Thank you, Commissioner Nisha, Chairperson Meenakshi, Commissioner Helen, and Carol, and Judy for giving us the time. Really appreciate it. Again, I'm Mahesh Pakala, and this is Reena Rao. We are from this Cupertino Bhubaneswar Sister City organization. And thanks, Jeff, as well, for spending some time with us earlier to give us some feedback. Today we stand here to talk to you about the medicinal garden that we visited last October, along with our then Mayor Savita Vaidyanathan. So basically that was a trip from the sister city, from Cupertino to Bhubaneswar, and we met with a lot of officials there, and our Mayor Savita was really impressed about the Healing Garden, and we discussed about it, and she proposed it in the City Council meeting as well after she came back to Cupertino. And I've been a resident of the Bay Area for the last nearly 26, 27 years, and been engaged with a lot of community work myself, and Reena as well. And like he was mentioning, this is a pretty multicultural city with a lot of ethnicities and a lot of followings in different religions, medicinal practices, healing practices. And this particular area, what we call Healing Garden, is available across different countries as well. Like the Chinese practice this, the Japanese practice this, the Indians practice this, different ethnicities. So we thought that could be a very good culmination of different cultures, different languages in the form of plants and trees for as a garden. So let me just talk to you about what it is there, and then go slowly around this. So basically what we noticed when we went and visited the garden, it's a collection of rare medicinal plants. Basically they were around 220 plants planted out there, and each of this plant had a particular medicinal value, like it's for diabetes, blood pressure, if you get mosquito bite, or you get hurt by some other, any diseases or things that you experience, there is a medicinal plant for that. And it was a very nice incident, actually. While we were walking, a mosquito came and bit our mayor, Savita Vaidyanathan. And really, within like few seconds, she could see a bud there, and the botanist there said, wait a minute. He went and plucked out a leaf, and he put it across her skin, and it was gone. That's just, wow, this is magic, you know. So that's what I think is a really interesting thing where we felt was it's pretty rare, and this plants have been growing there for ages, and it has been I don't even know how many years they've been growing there, but it has been made open to public in 2009 in Bhubaneswar, and it houses more than 220 significant plants. And it has been built in a very beautiful way. Actually, I put the flyers in front of you. There's pamphlets which you can take and have a look. It's more detailed specifics about the plants out there. And it's a garden where people can go and sit down and really enjoy the ambience. There's also a place to meditate if you want to, and you can have a small get-togethers, discuss about things. It's like a pretty nice environment, creates a pretty, also I believe, what's it called, not the flavor, but the air out there has a lot of medicinal value. You can just walk because of the leaves that emit that kind of air, it heals you just by walking down the lane. And there's a beautiful pond in between with flowers, what we call lilies. They also emit a lot of good energy out there. And to make this happen, also we were thinking, we also visited a few parks in Cupertino area, and actually they're beautiful parks and very nice parks. We thought that we can basically identify one of the parks and take a piece of the park, means area, and convert that into a medicinal garden. And to do that, we went and visited McLennan Park, Linda Vista Park, and San Antonio parks. And we were wanting to see which park has substantial sunlight, you know, because some of these plants which we may have to import, we have to get them from India or maybe and some of these plants are available also in Hawaii, we heard, also in Mexico. So we have to import a few plants which are not there in this park at the moment. And also we are getting support from, I think, the state where Bhubaneswar is located is called Odisha. So the Odisha government may also help us get some of these plants shipped to Cupertino because it's a sister city. They're going to support it. And also we were thinking of when we build this park, like you saw the paths, right? Wait, let me see. You see these paths? So we can put some beautiful decorations. Like Odisha is known for sculpture. There's a lot of stone sculptures are made out there by hand. So we can put some stone statues in the park and create a good pathway where people can walk and see the art as well. It's just not the medicinal value, but also we'll have some good art statues there, maybe paintings on the side. I'll show those slides as well. And what, do you have something else to add here?
Just, gazebo and.
Yeah, so basically, as I said, we will, our plan was that we'll have a good paths in the garden, as well as we'll create a small gazebo in between, where the gazebo, it can be done for we can do yoga sessions out there. People can come and practice meditation, and there are many things like a gazebo. And on the side, we were thinking we'll open a small chai shop as well. You know, people can sit down, have a cup of coffee or a tea, and create a nice ambience of the ancient civilization. What they used to do is go down and create some peace of mind out there. You know, there are a lot of people who do these sessions of yoga, but it'll be a nice environment with all the plants and trees to do yoga in between all of them. So and there is a gazebo there too, so we thought it would be a nice recreation. And this is the park that I was talking about, Ekambra Park. Ekambra 1 means, Ekamra, 1 means forest, Ekambra means one mango tree. Mango tree, you know, has a lot of medicinal values. The tree gives shade as well as the fruit. People love the fruit. In the leaves are used for pujas, all the ceremonies. It's like
Also for diabetes,
diabetes. Mango tree is good for diabetes as well.
mango leaves.
So this is why they named it Ekamra 1. You can see these are some of the photographs that I'm going to share with you. This is the path where you can walk, sit down. There you see the curve there. People sit in front of the lake. There's a lake on the left, and spend some time there in the peace. This is this is the artwork from Orissa, which is again handmade. This is called sandstone. People design this like a lot of sculptures. They come and design the stone and make it look so beautiful. We can also replicate that kind of stuff here in the park, make it really pretty. So these are some of the medicinal plants that have been planted. Each of these beds that you see has a different plant. And you see the small sign there, it also mentions the kind of ailment it takes care of. You can pluck the leaves. They don't let you to pluck the leaves there, by the way. But that's a different thing. But you can use those leaves for different medicinal value.
They have a nursery though.
Yeah. Basically, they have nursery where they can they give out the plants to people who want to take it home. And these are the benches where people sit and spend time relaxing under those plants, which has a lot of medicinal value there. This is one of those plants again,
It's redesigned.
And this one is again, basically it's all based on Chinese moon creeper, Pasrani. Is used for one particular, I don't know which, I'm not a botanist to tell you which exact ailment it takes care of, but they are all specific. They have actually given us a reference sheet of all the 200 plants and what ailments it takes care of. If you want, I can share that with you as well. It's a pretty exhaustive list. And they also perform, as I said, if you have the gazebo, you can also perform many other small activities, which is soothing to the eye and the ear, and those kind of they do perform dances and other stuff, which is And this is the entrance to the park. We can create. This is what we were thinking. Once we get the medicinal garden established anywhere, the entrance to the medicinal garden will have this kind of a sculpture in the front, just to enter the garden. We'll create that, the stone based. Yeah, what do you say?
Tentative.
Tentative. But these are the thoughts. And there is a similar, we also borrowed some ideas. There's a Art of Life Cancer Foundation set up here near Fresno. They have built a similar garden based on a similar concept actually. And we had did some research on that, and that looks like we can replicate a similar thing out here in Cupertino as well. They have the plants, but they don't have that exhaustive.
They don't have the plants.
Yeah. They don't have that kind of
Healing plants.
But so they built this park, so we thought healing park, they have a different concept, but we want to go one step ahead kind of a thing, have the plants as well there. And we could gain a lot of knowledge as to how they started doing that. Based on that, we have come up with a small plan, which is again a tentative plan that we were thinking, which we need all your approval and all your support to make this happen. In the phase 1, we want to sit with Jeff and the team and come up with more realistic design and a budget. And we will get help from Bhubaneswar architects as well, who have built the park there. They're ready to support us in terms of designing and budgeting and what it requires, how to ship the plants. Some logistics are involved. We have to work that out in the phase 1. We can work with the team, and once we get the design and the budget, some kind of a framework in place, then we would like we'll go to the city council and get their approval, and then get into the grading phase. Once this is all approved, right, then we start laying out the forms and figuring out the trails, how to do that. And maybe we need some kind of an irrigation to be set up, so we have to work and figure out what is the basic requirement or basic irrigation things that are required. And we have to import at least few plants. We were thinking 100, put a good think big, right? So we're thinking big, at least 100 plus plants. Hopefully we'll get some of that organized. And we want to figure out which of these plants, most of the 100, which we can get within the US and which we can get from Mexico or Hawaii or, Hawaii. And then we have to do all that analysis, which again we have to sit with the recreation, the botanist, and figure out which plants can be at the first phase we can get them. And we want to also set up these donor trails. And donor trail is, we will be looking for some sponsorships from the citizens and community people and see who wants to donate what, Based on that, we may be coming up we have not yet finalized the strategy, but we were thinking like this is, example, if we did for a school fundraiser we did was in a local school, we had to give a brick with the name, and so that we have to figure out some ways to get the funding from the citizens as well, because we know it's a very interesting project and we want all the community to get involved. I think that's the best way to involve as many community members as possible across ethnicities, across cultures, It could become the melting point for everybody wants good health. I think that's the bottom line. So this could be a good platform to get them onto one thinking and figure out more practical ways to do it or more ways to get them involved in this project. And also playscape for the kids, if the children want to get involved, even the small kids, the teens who are growing up, they want to get involved, they can get involved. The seniors can get involved as well, because when the gazebo, the seniors can come and spend their time. They can play cards out there, or they can read books to the kids. We can make a very nice atmosphere for the whole community to get involved. And to give that good ambience, that's what we're thinking about the stone art from Bhubaneswar. It's a pretty popular art, and we can figure out how to get that stone arts out here, maybe some 20 to 30 statues of the stone art, the tribal art in Bhubaneswar.
Gift from the city of
Yeah,
Bhubaneswar.
once we start going, the sister city, the city of Bhubaneswar is ready to donate. I'm sure there will be a lot of donations coming in from the city, from Bhubaneswar as well, for the art, especially the art, gifts, and there'll be like gifts basically. And what else you want to add?
Yeah, that's it.
So, yeah, we can add, even the park benches, for example, we were thinking when the park benches could be donated by the citizens. We did not really spend all that money ourselves. Maybe the citizens said, okay, this bench we can do donated by X, So we can have that. We have to get those logistics put together. It's we can have, again, donor walls. These are various ideas that we were thinking, and we can finalize as we start the designing and the budgeting process, what is more realistic, what could be done in phase one, because we want to get the ball rolling and get that started. Then the things will start falling into the place in terms of other people, The many things can be done, and I think this is a pretty good idea to convert the garden to a much more than just a garden, give more value to the citizens of Cupertino, and make it more additional. So if you have any thoughts, let me know. And I wanted to just share with you the last picture that we went with our mayor, Savita Vaidyanathan. She's sitting there in the black dress in the center. So this is, and basically they have all these school kids. Luckily we met them there, and they were on a tour of the garden. So we went there and had some nice discussions about them. They were doing, it's all MBA students, they're having a meeting there in the garden. So I thought, wow, maybe the school kids also can come and sit down in the garden and discuss, things and work out stuff. That was my last slide. So now and please go through this. The flyer that I've given you is just a sample of all the plants out there. And I have more details available with me, all the plants that are available, like 220 plants with all the medicinal values. I can email them to you or share them with you whenever if you want them, so definitely. So if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for
Thanks.
taking the time to give us this presentation. It's wonderful to also see our Sister Cities program and the impact that that can have when you have an opportunity to go to a place and then bring back these ideas to Cupertino to better our city. Fellow commissioners, did you have something to add and then I can wrap up?
No, thank you for the great presentation. A peaceful park is always good. I was just curious, the plants, the 200 plants that you mentioned, not everything can grow here because of the different weather and the maintenance, and if you have to replace them, are you working with a person who can, shorten that list? And because like mango tree cannot grow here. What's the procedure? I mean, in your first phase itself, you say 100 plants.
Yeah.
Is that a shortened list of what can grow here?
Yeah, that's a very good question, actually. See, as I said, there are a lot of plants, right? And I'm not an expert in the plants to even tell you which plant will be the best plant to grow. But I understand, based on my brief discussion with the botanist, actually, I've talked to the botanist the person who's in charge of the parks in India, Bhubaneswar. He has all the fundamentals. He will be helping us, guiding us through the process because we're replicating. I will to identify, I'll talk with Jeff and his team and figure out who would be the right person to shortlist from the 220 plants to maybe some 100 plants or so. And then that'll be the next phase of identification once we get into that phase. Because they have some data points, which I do not have it right now, but I can get that for you.
I guess I have a question, or a couple questions. I think this is a really exciting idea, by the way, and thank you for coming out and presenting this to us. But I guess my question, maybe it's more for Jeff, would this be something that would be part of the park master plan, or something that can be done outside of that scope?
Jeff Melkus, Director, Recreation Community Services. Absolutely, it could. In fact, as we had presented earlier, our consultant, MIG, had presented, there are different themes that are coming out of the master plan, and one of those is to create things that are uniquely Cupertino. And I would think that this would fit into kind of a category like that. Of course, the challenge would be deciding on which one of the beautiful parks we could, use some space in and kind of move forward with. Once we do that, then we should have more conversations. This is very, very interesting.
Well, and I was also going to say, I think it would be a regional draw, so the two parks that you came up with, I would consider more neighborhood parks, so you probably have to look at something that's more of a community park, but I'm sure Parks and Rec can work with you on that. And I see it as a great opportunity for all kinds of, hands-on workshops and forums and, collaboration with the Parks and Rec and with the city. So, and having been to Bhubaneswar, it's a very beautiful city. Anyway, thanks for presenting this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I might add, I know we're not taking votes or anything, but let me add that I would really strongly suggest we put this in our master plan and find a place somewhere for this park. Of course, this looks big and huge. I'm not sure we actually knowing all the places, but I'm sure we could make a spot for it somewhere. And I agree with Helene that it would be a regional draw, and so it'd be something in the middle of our city that we'd be really proud of. So let me encourage our master planners to keep this in their mind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess one question I had is, do you see this as an initiative that you would basically turn over to the city, or would you expect continued community involvement? And how would you, if that's true, how would you envision that?
Again, that's a very good question. We would like to work with the city, definitely, because it's a project which is for the city. And we will be there to support it. Yeah, we will be supporting it as like a partnership, I would say, but the city will be has to drive it. Otherwise, this kind of projects, it's like an institution. When you build an institution, you need to have a system and the pattern put together, then anybody comes and goes. It's still there and working, So we need to figure out that way, but I think it's best to get the city behind it.
Yeah, at this point,
Yeah.
we don't know how it's going to progress. Yeah.
Yeah, but we would definitely drive it to make sure city. also has a skin in the game, kind of a thing.
I think, given that we're doing the master plan, it just is a natural that it needs to be fit within that structure and looked at with all the other priorities. There's so many priorities that we have, and there's so many great ideas, and this is certainly one of them, but we need to go through the process to look at it in conjunction with everything. And that's where the master plan process is taking us.
Great. I think that with the rise of Eastern traditions in the U.S., especially, be that Tai Chi, meditation, yoga, it would be wonderful to see something like this in Cupertino, and I especially like that chai shop idea. Paying $6 at Starbucks for a turmeric milk latte that's been an Ayurvedic tradition for
Correct.
4,000 years is not necessarily something that I want to do, but I like to see I'd like to see that little chai shop edition too.
Excellent.
So as my fellow commissioners mentioned, we do have the master plan process going. We'll definitely make sure that this is something that the planners consider as they're charting out what the different parks look like and where we could actually position this, because this really would be a regional draw. I don't think it's only going to be citizens of Cupertino that will appreciate this. I have a feeling that when we build something like this, many people in the region will also be interested in coming, so that will impact a little bit of where we would place it.
But a park like Linda Vista or anything, or San Antonio is centrally located, but Linda Vista also, it's a quieter, this place needs a quieter area, not too much noise all around from the, so if people go, they want to go to such a place to enjoy the peace.
Yes.
So you have to see that kind of
Ambience.
too.
Yeah.
Great, and I think having the continued partnership between you guys and the city to make sure that these things are considered in the planning process will be great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And also, I want to convey that the state of Odisha is looking is very keen to have this happen here in the city. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank
do we have blue cards for you guys?
Not a card, but I had a question. So
Chair will entertain that? I don't know what the proper phrasing is.
I can fill
Go
out a
ahead.
card
No,
after.
you're good.
So, I think this is a marvelous idea, and it sounds like a great thing for, as I said, because we are such a multicultural city. But, when you think about a library isn't just a collection of books. What makes a library special is you have librarians who understand how to work with them. And it seems like your presentation focused primarily on the physical characteristics, and I would just encourage you to look at also the human resources side of it, because a garden can be a nice thing to walk through and smell and enjoy how beautiful it is, but this seems like a place where there'd be a lot of opportunities for knowledge and teaching, and so it seems like there should be connected with it either a staff person or a docent or group of docents who have the specific knowledge who could help teach about it. So I would just want to say, as you think about it, don't think about the physical environment, but think about the human component as well.
Thank you.
Great, thank
Thank
you.
you.
And I believe we had one more public comment.
So, my name is Ahmed Doidar. I definitely second the idea. It's a good idea, but I would suggest that you would look into integrating other cultures and not just one. I think everybody will be happier and you'll get the support you need. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so thank you again for coming to make this presentation.
Thank you.
We don't have anything under postponements. We do have our oral communications section, so if you do have a public comment, please do fill out the blue cards that are available on the front right side of the stage. Do we have any blue cards coming? All right, with no blue cards, we'll go on to old business, and that is the work plan. Did I skip written communication? That's great. So many papers. So it looks like we have quite the robust meeting. Is May 5th this Saturday? I think so. So 2 days before that, so May 3rd.
What's wrong with Saturdays?
I think everybody is videotaping it.
Yes. We apologize for any clerical issue
Oh,
with this.
that's fine. Just wanted to confirm I didn't have my meeting date switched. Commissioners, do you have any questions or reorders that you'd like to discuss right now?
I still see the age-friendly communities designation on the items to schedule, so we pull that off. So we got that tonight. Anyone? Under items to
We
schedule,
can go ahead and cross that.
so we don't need to keep that on there since we,
I don't know what we decided on the joint meeting. The joint meeting with the bike ped, I don't know what we decided on that, or I thought we had discussed that we wouldn't have a joint meeting. I think that,
Yeah, I believe
Was-
the conversation was that they would come either give us a presentation when
Right.
it was
right.
ready to happen. Otherwise, it looks good to us. Jeff, do you have any additions for this agenda item? Otherwise, we can proceed.
Not at this point.
Okay, great. So on to new business. Item number 6 is the McClellan Ranch Community Garden Improvements Conceptual Planning and Design. So we have our staff report, and then we can continue.
While they're getting set, this is going to be a really interesting, very great presentation. It's something that staff have been working on for quite some time to make a real transformative change to the community gardens. And of course, the physical layout in the plant is only part of it. The way that it's managed, of course, will go with the proposed program. So, Alex?
Right before we start, if there's anybody in the audience who would like to, any community members who would like to give feedback on this, please do sign a blue card that's up to the front.
Good evening, Commission. I'm Alex Asenas, Project Manager with Public Works, and I'm here to present the proposed conceptual design for McClellan Ranch Community Garden. This project is in the Capital Improvement Program, and the first phase is basically to look at what the needs are and how we can start addressing the concerns and issues surrounding the community garden. So we went through a public engagement process. Between September and January, we met with the gardener community to seek their input and their ideas on how we can improve the physical nature of the garden itself. And we had these meetings as shown in the slides.
April 5th wasn't there. There was no meeting on, March 5th, sorry.
Yeah, so we had a couple of community meetings in September and October, and then we had a meeting in December, and a gardener meeting in January to present a couple of concepts and seek the public's feedback. And as a result of that meeting, we are here to present a proposed conceptual design. So these are the benefits that the staff sees for doing a community garden reset. And basically, It improves, helps improve the ability of staff to manage and operate the garden. It provides ADA accessibility, gives staff a chance to fix the failing irrigation system and the fencing, and address the rodent issue at the community garden. What you see here now is an aerial of the existing community garden, and the boundaries are outlined in red. So when we met with the gardener community in January, we presented a couple of options to seek their reaction and feedback. So this is one of the options. Basically what distinguishes this one from the next one is that there's a straight spine down the middle, and then on either side of this walkway are what are called pods or groups of plots, which help to organize the space. Some of the features of this concept include outdoor education areas, which is something that staff was looking forward to make this also an educational setting. This is the other option. Basically, what we have now is a main pathway that's not entirely straight. So we break it up so that it's not a long, narrow corridor. Actually, this is not narrow. It's about 6 to 8 feet wide. But we just break it up and create some more interesting layout. And some of the features that we're incorporating here are, again, outdoor educational areas with shaded structures, some site furnishings, some benches, and a dedicated master gardener plot. As a result of the input that we received, we went back and worked with our design consultant to come up with a blended concept, and this is what we're moving forward with and proposing as a conceptual design for the reset of the garden. So we responded to the comment about making sure that the plots are oriented north-south instead of east-west. We are trying to provide a variety of sizes. We have small, medium, and large plots. And we have a mixture of raised and in-ground beds to meet various gardeners' needs. And here's a picture of what that might look like. We're proposing wood chips in between the plots to walk on. We're proposing see-through wood mesh fence and short interior fences between the plots to help organize the space and define the spaces. We're proposing embedded mesh, some flashing on the fencing, hardware cloth in the dirt, and cover over the planters. Basically, we're proposing to provide the infrastructure to allow for gardeners to individually protect their own plots. And we are trying to address the rodent problem by actually creating sort of a moat around the plots. We're introducing a walkway so that the ground squirrels don't have a direct path into the garden itself. So we're looking at ways to make it more difficult for the ground squirrels to enter the plots. In this conceptual design, we are providing for public space for the community to gather and for our staff to hold some educational programs. And we're proposing to introduce some of these amenities like tool sheds, wash stations, and wheelbarrow storage, and a mini kiosk for information for bulletins and announcements. And here are some pictures of what they might look like. Again, these are concepts that we are proposing to move forward with. And so so we've heard about rodent control and trying to maximize the use of the existing footprint of the community garden. So here's a side-by-side comparison of what we have now and what we're proposing. So basically, there are about 59 plots in the existing garden. We're proposing around 77. We have existing two-size plots, basically half and full size. And what we're proposing is a variety of small, medium, large plots to accommodate all different gardeners' needs. And that concludes my presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for putting this together. And also, I really appreciated the format of input and response in this design process. That's actually very, very helpful as we're assessing this. I know that we probably have questions. We'll save discussion until after, but if commissioners, if you had questions before we move to public comment.
So this might be a process question, which might or might not be in this, but how would you deal with the people who have plots versus new people? Like a transition process, is that going to be part of the transition?
Kim Callum, Recreation Supervisor in charge of the garden. Well, our folks that we have currently in our garden have, they've been through it. You know, they've battled those darn rodents and squirrels and tried to make that garden work for them as much as they can. And we do want to look at them and take care of them first. And so you'll see as we did some of the rules, for new people that come in, there will be term limits of 5 years because we have a long waiting list. But our gardeners that are current, we're going to keep them. They're legacy gardeners, so they're going to get a few perks that new folks will not get. You know, we know that they have invested in their garden plots. We know they have put money into their plots, and this is a big change for them to totally scrape and reset the garden. When people have put their blood and sweat and tears into their plot, you know, it's a tough thing. But ultimately, we want to make it better.
I had a question about the master plots. How were those allocated and how were those
We
different?
already have master gardeners there, so
Right.
they basically have the same area of space that they had previously. They have not been really active the last couple of years. They've been there. They've kept their plots up, and they look very nice. But they have jumped into this project with great excitement and want to bring free programs to the community. From the Master Gardeners programs. And so I think that we can benefit with them a great deal as a partner. And we'll be looking at other partners that can help us provide those services as well.
So were those plots, do those gardeners also have regular plots, or how does that work with the
Master
master
Gardening, it's an organization of people. And so they come and will do demos on certain plants or how to compost or how to plant. And they'll just bring nice, unique educational information to really all ages.
So that area is very different. Those aren't counted into the number of plots?
No.
Okay,
Well,
thank you.
I don't know if it is counted in the number of plots. The Master Gardeners? No. No, it's not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Looking at the map, there's this community area. Is it for the gardeners?
It's for anybody.
For anybody who
Yeah.
can go there.
And you
Okay.
can see the one on the top left corner. You can see the tree covers it a little bit, so there's a little shade area in there. Not greatly conducive for gardening, but a great space to sit and see the meadow or to enjoy the garden, or a nice place for our gardeners to sit. But mainly our gardeners are out there working on their plots. They're not sitting and viewing a lot. You know, if they do that, they're usually in their plots. But it's a community garden. We want everybody to enjoy it. So there's a couple of different places there. We have to be strategic about shade because we don't want to cover plots so that they don't have that sunlight to grow. So you can see the other space right in the nook of the curve. You see 3 picnic tables that look like X's. We will use an umbrella, small umbrellas that we can put up and take down ourselves in order to protect the gardens on either side of them so that they have plenty of sunlight.
One more question about, will it be safe for the school trips to come through this?
Oh, much safer than what we have now, and they go through there now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when the master gardeners have classes, how large a group can it accommodate? Like,
You know,
what's-
we haven't got to those details,
Okay.
but, you know, we're in an outside space. We can take more people, but it's up to them. We'll work with them on
Okay.
promoting and registration for those programs.
But there is enough space around
Yes.
that?
Oh,
lot?
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. You can see the space in the top left-hand corners where you see the picnic tables. Down below it are actually benches.
I see.
And where you see the yellow areas, that is a more solid surface to walk on so that it's ADA compliant.
Great. Okay.
So the whole area is not ADA compliant. We just didn't feel that need. It's just kind of cost prohibitive. And so the rest of it, where you see brown, is bark dust.
And the 4-H that is over there right now, is that part, the animals and the?
Yeah, the 4-H will stay exactly where it's at.
Okay.
Well, I think you may have answered my question about the shade, because I was wondering if the master gardeners needed to be closer to the areas where they would be doing workshops, which would be over here. But I'm assuming you got a lot of input on this, so.
Yeah, and they've seen these plans. They came to one of our meetings, and gosh, I think 4 or 5 of them came, and were greatly excited, and the regional person contacted us, and they want to be involved, and I think it's a benefit to the community.
Okay, that's it for me.
On the, are these X lines, is that where fencing goes? So are there groups of plots that have fencing around, so there's a shared security, locks, and how does that work?
He mentioned the pods, and so within a pod, there are a number of plots, some small, medium, and large. Each plot will be contained with its own keys. So those folks that are in that plot area will have a key that's unique to their pod. All right? The staff will have keys to all of them. But those 6 or 8 people, or how many people are working in that particular pod, will all be working together. They'll have a singular storage cabinet. They'll have irrigation. They'll have ability to have tools there and be able to help each other out like a community garden does if somebody's out of town or sick.
So the pods have community security, and then the plots have individual security as well?
No, the plots don't have individual
so they're
security.
within the pod. Okay.
They're within a pod, wide open.
Great. Okay, I think that's it for clarifying questions. We can move to discussion after public comment. All right, so the process is that I will call the name of the person speaking and then also the person who will come after them. So if you could just be prepared once that person is done. And there's a time limit for your section. We are not supposed to respond, but if we have a clarifying question, we may ask that as commissioners. First, we have S. Hall, if you can also come forward and state your full name for the record. And then we have Pamela Ropier. So S. Hall first.
Sharon, it's your turn.
Oh, I didn't even see her back there.
Yeah, I can't hear.
So this is sorry. It's so sorry to be slow here, but I am hearing impaired and I'm having difficulty hearing all of you. I would like to speak to the fact that McClellan Ranch is rural, and that I feel that the garden should maintain a rural character, not overdeveloped. One of the reasons I came to garden at McClellan was the rural area. And there were a couple of things that caught my eye with the presentation. One was a word called underutilization. Well, I have to remind the Park and Recreations that for 3 years we had a list of people who wanted to come to garden in there, and nobody was allowed to sign up. So it's underutilization is a little strange. The other thing is, when gardeners come to garden, they come to use the soil and to garden. They're not that interested in all the other activities of getting together and so on and so forth. They're pretty, into their gardening. So You know, I would like to see that, and one of my biggest disappointments in the current presentations is the fact that they have destroyed the current type of plot structure. Our current plot structure works very well. And the only thing we ever wanted was a water upgrade and a good fence around the perimeter. So it looks like you got the perimeter maybe handled. Another thing, you were talking about underlaying wire underneath gardens. I didn't catch all of where you were saying you were going to underlay that wire, but wire eventually dissipates, falls apart, and needs to be replaced. So that's just a temporary solution to do that. The other things is, if you're thinking about a garden structure, our current garden structure had big plots placed around the perimeter. We were the ones that got, the people that had the big plots were given that because we caught all of the pests that were coming in. And so to compensate for that, we were given a little bigger plot, and the smaller ones more interior. The other thing I think you addressed it sort of, is that cement is horrible on a garden. It destroys the soil, and currently McClellan has the best soil I have seen for gardening, and it's wonderful soil. And I think you should preserve the soil as much as possible.
Thank you so much. We've reached the end of your time for this.
I need an interpreter.
Sorry, we've reached the end of the 3 minutes for your
We're
time.
up.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have to quit. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, next up, Pamela. And after Pamela, we have Ganeshan Swaminathan.
So I'm Pamela Roper, and I am the advisory board president for the Master Gardeners of Santa Clara County for the University of California. I want to state that I am thrilled, and so is our organization, that there's changes that are happening to the McClellan Ranch site. Our gardeners that have been there are aged. We have one that's 92 who just had hip replacement. We have another one that is got Parkinson's, and slowly but surely they want to renew the area and get new blood in there and get the area turned over. When you talk about classes, we have 10 demonstration gardens throughout Santa Clara County, from Gilroy to Palo Alto. We hold classes every month. We probably have a class a day, either at a library or at a garden. We haven't been able to do it at McClellan because of who's been gardening there and because of the space, and also because of not having the facility to do it. I think with the new layout, we'll be able to do hands-on workshops. We'll be able to take those two areas that you have, where you have some shade, and actually put together a curriculum that will work for the residents of Cupertino. I will also say that safety, I think, is a huge concern at that garden, and I think you're doing some things to improve safety. I think rodent control is huge, and I think that the amount of work that Jen and Barbara have done is amazing. They have gone out and looked at community gardens. They have talked to the city of Cupertino, where we have a master gardener area as well, and found out how those work. I think that it's a tough thing when things change, but I think that what you're going to do is create an area that I hope that people will start to take advantage of. I know the soil is really cool there, and I think that if you could scrape some of it away and save it while you're laying out the area, that would be good, and it might solve some of the issues that people have with reusing that. Composting would be big there. 4-H is also part of the University of California county offices, and we're associated with them, and nutrition, and I think we can team up to do a lot of other things that we haven't done there. I look at that as a change. It's really hard when you have to pull out everything you've been doing, and September 30th, you have to clear out the area. I know it's very emotional for some of our gardeners that have been there forever. They're like, oh my gosh, we have to like take away everything. We've been working on this forever. So I think that's the hard part that you have to deal with. But I think in the end, when it's all done, I think it'll be an improvement for your community. That's all I have to say.
Wonderful, thank you. Next, we have Ganeshan, and after that, we have Ahmed. And if anybody else has something to add, please send your blue card up.
Good evening, everyone. I'm one of the legacy gardener here. Thanks to Barbara for giving me a plot long time ago. I'm one of the gardener in the peripheral area where the tree was. Just like the first young lady who spoke about the garden at McClellan, I wanted to preserve the rural environment. That is my humble request. Why? Because it has been our bragging right to say, yeah, there is $1 trillion company here, world-class company here, 100 meters down the road, it's a rural settings. I would like to have that bragging right. So it is a good thing that we are doing something improvement. It is a very sad thing to see, to leave the plot where we invested quite a lot. We went through a lot of drought situations. One of the biggest problem that we have is the rodent. That has not been addressed heavily. Yeah, rodent, you are going to solve it. How? Because this McClellan garden area is a collection of innovative people in the garden area. Some of the technocrats, they adopted their own technology to do it. Some of the old guys, they dug 8 feet, 10 feet, and tried to put the fence there. So a lot of innovation happened. But simply saying, yeah, it is going to solve the rodent, if we are successful, very good. I have my own reservation because we tried everything. We tried everything. I'm glad that it is the improvements are happening, but the uncertainty of our own having our own plot that we have cultivated so long is something uncomfortable, but it is something that we need to live with for the sake of improvement. Good luck to everyone, and I hope the new transformation will still maintain the rural settings that we all enjoyed and bragged so far. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Ahmed Duider, and then Bob Austin.
So my name is Ahmed Duaidar. So I am in support of the transformation. Concern is that I don't know whether how much feedback you've gotten from the gardeners. And I watch my email and I don't see much there. So my recommendation here is that reach out via email or not necessarily ask people to come and look at the plots. Some people may not have time. So my recommendation is that you see if you can spread your plan out to everybody on email list and get some feedback there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bob?
Hey, I'm really thankful to have a garden plot. I've been there for 5 years, and it's been really difficult. I think I've already shared with Kim and the staff there all my thoughts and opinions on this whole process. The rodent problem is a major issue, but it's not only underground, it's on ground and above ground. So unless you're going to put things in a cage, there's really no one good answer, and I don't know that this really addresses it for the amount of money you're going to spend on it. I'd like to see it go in phases where you build the perimeter first and then put the water infrastructure in, and then see how that goes. And then, because I see a lot of benefit from the plants, I think they look really nice. but for the money that you're going to get out of it, or the benefit you're going to get out of the money you're going to spend on this, it's going to be really difficult. People who come to the garden, they really need to understand what the actual investment is going to be when they come in, because currently you come in and you think you're going to put something in the ground, and then you watch it be pulled underneath, right literally before your eyes, being eaten away at the roots. Tears, yeah, my wife had tears on this particular experience. Watering every day only to come and find it actually being pulled underground. I've seen the birds come in, I've seen the rabbits go through the fences. There's a lot of things you can be doing right now to secure the perimeters and to improve the water without going through with this major investment.
Thank you. Any other blue cards, Kevin? Wonderful. All right, commissioners, discussion time.
So I would like to know, in the process of getting feedback from the community and in the discussion and all, what were the two major positive feedback and two negative, or the point of contention?
I'll start with the negative. The rodents are the big negative, you know.
No, of the change of this process.
Of the change of this
from the
process?
community, yeah.
Well, and that's the issue. Everybody's frustrated. They can't get a harvest. You know, they've done extreme things to try to get a harvest, and very few have been successful. You know, it's those folks that have been there for years that have worked through it and worked through it and worked through it. That's the main thing. There's a lot of small dramas that go on, you know, but in terms of big picture things, that's the big issue. I think there has been an issue of staff support at times and how we support that program. Whether we've gotten out there and helped with the infrastructure and done the things that we could maybe do to help that in the past. And as a result, we have some safety issues now where people have encroached across the aisles, the pathways, and into areas that we don't own. Those folks on the east edge, that's partly Santa Clara Water District land, and we're not supposed to be out there. So those are kind of the negatives. In terms of the positives, everybody needs better irrigation. You know, if you walk out there, you can see hoses everywhere where people are trying to get water to their plot. Irrigation is a big thing for folks, and I think that in terms of positive things, just having systems that work, you know, where people need support, they can go to a staff person and get that support.
Thank you.
I think it's great that the gardeners came out today, and to hear, change is always hard, and to hear that you are understanding of the need for change and are hopeful that things will be better, and that you're willing to work through it. I really appreciate that from the gardeners. Some things, when you try to make improvements, there are new requirements on the city when we try to make changes. And so some of the things like the ADA, it may not look the same and as rural because of the ADA requirements or whatever other requirements we have on us. And so those are things that might be out of our control, but hopefully we can keep the nature of it of being a gardening area. And I hope that you'll understand that those are requirements that the city has that we can't get away from. And so I do appreciate the gardeners coming out and being out there and enjoying what you do. I walk around Blackberry McClellan Ranch a lot, and I look forward to seeing more productivity there from the gardeners, and hopefully more security for yourself and more safety. And I hope that this plan is gonna get us there. I would like to know, are there plan B and C if the fencing does not work for the rodents? What other things might we be able to do that we could implement later should we need further options?
Well, I think we're still researching some of that stuff. Alex gave you some ideas of what folks around us have done, and there are some unique things that people have done and have had success. Just to catch folks up on what's going on with the rodents right now, because we have not done an update. Public Works has been working to hire a contractor, and that takes a process. It's a bidding process, and they just, I was gone last week, they just secured that contractor. So our next step will be to bring in our partners, bring in 4-H, bring in representatives from the garden, bring in Audubon Society, Friends of Stevens Creek, Master Gardeners, and develop a plan. And develop a plan that everybody's on the same page, so that 4-H, if they're putting out food rubbish, we're doing it in a way that doesn't attract more rodents. So that's really our next steps. I've just been trying to wait to get this person hired so that we can develop a plan. And so I think that's our best course of action, and we're still researching. Jen has been around to different places. There's some things that we'd like to do. We don't know if we can because of code, but there are things that we're still looking into.
All right, so I do have a couple of questions. I know you guys had given examples of what we could do to prevent the rodents, but as some of the citizens had said, they've tried a lot of things. So, are the plans, I'm assuming that they're industry standard, but what are those best practices, and how do we make sure that we're staying on top of those going forward? Because I know those little buggers are very creative.
Yeah.
So some of the design features that we're looking at are basically pulling out the plots themselves away from the perimeter fencing, because the squirrels are currently using the perimeter fencing as a way to get in. And so by creating kind of a walkway and then pulling the plots away from the drip line of the trees, basically we're proposing not to have any gardens underneath the shade, because the squirrels can just jump from the limb down into the garden. So where we have drip line, basically we're using that for community spaces, for open space, and just concentrating the plots towards the middle of the property. And we're also looking at different types of fencing that would discourage the rodents from walking on top of the fence. I think there are designs out there that can not exactly eliminate, but minimize or reduce the chances or reduce the opportunities for rodents to find a way to get in. So we're going to look at all the options carefully and pull our heads together and try to come up with the best solution from above and from below ground.
I think another thing that we have done, and it's an ongoing issue, is we've cleaned up. Where there's piles of debris that they like to live in and stay in, we've cleaned those plots up. And we need to keep doing that. Now it's rained and it's warm and weeds have grown, and so it's an ongoing challenge. But those are some of the things that we need to do as a staff to make sure that we're not creating housing for them.
And if I may add, we're also actually looking at the existing trash enclosures and trying to look at ways to discourage more rodent activity, considering putting covers on those things and making them more secure so that it's not an open area
really
that rodents can be in.
I'm sorry. It's really not just the garden. It's the buildings as well. We have rodent issues around the building that Public Works is addressing right now. The ranch house where Audubon Society is, the Junior Nature Museum are great examples where the squirrels make the nice little trails for them and the rats go in and chew. They're working together. So it's a whole plan. We have problems in the barn right now. It's just used for storage. Staff has started cleaning that out so that we can, again, get rid of places that they're living. We have cameras in there and can see them having a great time.
Well, I'm glad to.
Well, when you were saying rural, that kind of like what you're describing sounds rural to me, and so that's kind of comes with the territory, right? I mean, the rodents.
It does.
Everything.
Aesthetically, we're required by the guidelines at McClellan to keep that kind of aesthetics at the place. Now, we're looking at wood fences, we're looking at wooden sheds. We want it to look like a ranch preserve, because that's what it is. And so Things will look newer. There will be ADA accessibility things that are different, but for the most part, we want to keep that ranch rustic aesthetics.
Well, I just think the safety is important, like Carol said, and I would say, you know, for the gardeners, for the elderly, for the young people that come through there. So I think it's important to put those things in place, and that's why this plan looks good. And also, it sounds like the road control you're trying, and if it's uniform across all the plots, because what you were saying is you didn't provide the infrastructure before, so the gardeners that were out there were just kind of trying to do things ad hoc as they went along, and they learned what worked and what didn't. So what you're saying is that you're going to provide the infrastructure to everyone.
We are,
so hopefully
and
if it's
not
uniform, it'll
correct.
work better.
It's not a single-pronged approach by any means. You know, where possibly in the past we haven't let trapping happen, we'll be looking at doing those and do it in a safe, constructive way. There's just a bunch of different ways to go about this, but we need to do it in a humane way. We're a public place and a preserve, and we'll look at addressing that when we get that little contractor rolling.
Okay, I have a few more questions. So when we had taken the tour and we had seen a lot of these plots, some of them incredible, some of them needed a little TLC.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the legacy gardeners, how do you go about establishing that those specific people will get that carryover? Because there's some people who have plots that probably haven't visited in a little while.
You bet. Well, we've talked to everybody. Jen has been on the phone. She's talked to folks in the garden and on the waiting list. We know that we want to get a group of gardeners together, little committee, that kind of helps us with what's appropriate for this garden. We don't really want it to look like a shopping mall garden where everything's exactly the same. We want it to have its own unique things, and we want the gardeners to be able to bring their uniqueness to their plot as long as it falls within appropriate guidelines. And a toilet for some might be a great planter, for others it might be disgusting. We want the gardeners to help us decide what's appropriate. And once we decide and develop that criteria with them, then we'll have a group of people that, including Jen, that will inspect gardens and talk to people and work with them. And we've laid that all out in their contracts and in their guidelines. And everybody is signed up now that's going to be signed up, and had the opportunity to ask questions and things like that. So I think that we're going to work with folks. We're a pretty customer-driven group of people. And so we're going to try to work with people as much as we can.
Okay, the other question that I had was actually around the wait list. It was one of the things that I was definitely interested in last time.
Yeah.
Just around, you know, we do a lot of we're an age-friendly city. Many of our seniors don't have backyards, and there's also, you know, younger people who live in apartments who don't have access to backyards versus my family has a nice backyard. I don't necessarily think we should get, you know, preference on a wait list just because we were there first. So I was wondering, I know you had said there was like a couple hundred people on the wait list.
There's 113.
Now it's decreased, right?
Give or take one, 113.
So I was just wondering, in terms of addressing that, how are you guys going about it now? What's the format that you're using going forward instead of just first come, first serve?
Well, when you brought that up, you know, the last time we talked, it was just something that I hadn't really thought about. And so we decided we would go talk to people and ask them, you know, what are their priorities. Most of our gardeners are, like these guys have said, they're out there to enjoy gardening, you know. They don't necessarily have a place to garden. That's just generally what you get in community gardens. People that have a place don't usually want to leave their house and go somewhere else to do that. And so in terms of priorities, we pretty much decided to stick with what we have, which is a group of very patient folks that have, some of them been on that waiting list for over 5 years, and go first come, first serve. And we've talked to all of them. Jen has a pretty good idea of what their priorities are. And when we talked, there was nobody that said, you know, I have to have this. I'm not going to have food if I don't have this garden. It's not that kind of community. But we want to honor our wait list. that, I feel like we committed to folks. When we put them on a wait list, it's almost like an unwritten contract that your turn's coming, and so we want to try to first get this garden in order, fill our plots up, get as many people off that wait list that we can, and then down the road look at expanding a smaller group of plots in other gardens.
Great. And then the final question I have is around just enforcement. And how are we going to ensure that that will happen if there is a plot that's either violating, I have one more question actually, but if they are doing something not supposed to, or they're not tending to their plot the way it needs to be tended to, how are we going to ensure that?
Well, there's always been guidelines that would have handled that had we had good follow through. And so we've looked at those guidelines, we've honed them a little bit, and I think they're fair. It's really about communication. Jen is our garden coordinator, Jen Estes, and she will be going through the garden on a regular basis. We'll let people know when it's time to do inspections. But it's not meant to be punitive. It's meant to be, let's get on the same page. And so she'll be working with folks. If somebody, pretty much they've all agreed to those rules by signing their contract. I think that's not going to be a big issue for us, but we do have timelines in place, where we're given reasonable timelines of we need to see this and this done by this point. If it's not done by then we'll be progressive and move on. But it's not oh, well, you have a shovel in the wrong place, you can no longer garden. We don't want to be that kind of folks. We want to be customer driven. And so we're going to try to work with people as much as possible. We want this to be something people can enjoy and reap the benefits from what their work is.
Great. I definitely like the customer-driven approach, as long as we're being respectful to those waitlist people. And then the final thing is, as we are building out this irrigation system, there's a lot of technology out there to manage things like water usage. There's even a product that will literally tell you if there is a leak. So are we looking at incorporating those kind of technologies? The thing I'm thinking about, it's called a calliope. It's this big and it's very inconspicuous. But are we looking at that for this plot just to make sure that we can upkeep all of the amazing things that you guys have in the plan?
Definitely the plan would be to employ whatever technology is out there to ensure that we are using our resources, especially water, wisely.
Great.
Yes.
So I have a question about, you mentioned there are legacy plot owners. What number are we talking about?
How many people we currently have? 29.
So the rest of the plots would be
50-something will be.
50 would be for, after every 5 years, they will be
Turn it over. As long as we have a wait list, we reserve the right to change that rule. Once we've accommodated folks in Cupertino and we don't have a huge wait list, we may not need any kind of term limit.
Right, according to you, like right now there was 120 or 113 wait list, and according to the new plan, you will only take care of 18 new people, right?
Yeah.
So we have a long way to go to
Yeah, we
finish
do.
that wait list. But as you explained, the 5-year term, the people will leave and the new people.
It depends on what
or
they want to
can
do.
renew?
They'll either go on their way and do something different or get back on the list to get another plot.
And they will be added to the wait list?
If they want to, yeah, anybody
Okay.
can.
Oh, okay. And the other question is about the pods. So there are it looks like 3 or 4 or 5 plots in a pod.
Well, it varies.
Right,
Depending
there are
on the
different,
size.
right. So how the people in the pod, they choose, 4 people come together and say, we want a pod?
Yeah,
Or-
that'll be interesting. We're going to try to work with folks. There's some people
Because
that
there
have already
could
come
be-
to us as I don't want to be with that
Yes,
person.
exactly.
So we're gonna try to work with it.
Okay, so there's no
We're just gonna try to work with it as we go.
okay, okay,
For case by case basis, try to make everybody happy as much as we can.
okay. I can see
But
issues.
really, our legacy folks are gonna get placed first.
Okay,
And where one of the plants had many more giant plots, we did a survey with the gardeners and actually counted how many people would like those large plots and adjusted the number to that.
Thank you.
I just have one more comment. It's about the wait list and all of that. And as part of the master plan, we are looking at distributing some gardens in other parts of the city. And so, hopefully that will allow us to have more areas for gardeners. And if people are coming all the way from the east side to come over to McClellan, maybe we can get something more distributed in another part of the city that would be more convenient for them and expand the numbers as well. So I hope that we can accomplish that through our master plan as well.
I agree.
All right, thank you again for coming through and doing this presentation. And also you heard all the feedback from our community members as well. So please do also make sure that's reflected in future plans as well. Next, we have a new business, item number 7, which is the Code of Conduct.
Excuse me, Chair?
Yes.
If I could suggest, staff are actually looking for your recommendation to move forward or not with the plan as it is. So.
You looking for motion? I move that we go forward with this plan.
I second.
All right, we'll go to a vote.
Thank you. That'll work. Thank you.
Thank you, and motion to push this through passes. Thank you for the clarification. And now moving on to new business item number 7, the Code of Conduct.
Okay, we're bringing this code of conduct forward. Each of for your consideration and comment, each of our facilities tends to have a little different set of rules. Again, our intention, as we've had some issues in several of our facilities where perhaps people didn't necessarily play well together, our issues are not to be punitive, but to request and adhere to a set of to compliance. And in doing so, we're bringing forth what we think is a consistent approach to this. This is a 2-part process. It's first to identify what that code of conduct is, and the second part then is to create a system whereby if we have to enforce and create an exclusion from one of our facilities, that there will be a very transparent way of redress and folks to request hearings or opportunity to say, wait a minute, this wasn't necessarily my fault. I don't want to be removed from this facility, things like that. There are penalties attached within the municipal code that can be assigned for the, within reason for violating the code of conduct. But I think that we can do something a little different in our facilities, again, because we're not looking we're not looking to be punitive. We just want to get compliance to make sure that everyone has a great time. So with that said, Kim is up again as the author of this code.
Hi. Well, code of conduct, as a past building manager in recreation, it was great to have this tool. Just the fact that it is posted makes a big difference to folks. If they can't see the rules, they don't always feel like they have to adhere to the rules. And so when I developed this code of conduct, I did it, I stole from all the other cities that do this. And this is part of our accreditation process as well. So it clicks off a little requirement that we have to have for our accreditation. But what we want to do is we want to set a tone. We want to create a safe environment for folks that lets them feel welcome and comfortable and safe in our facilities. So we'll just go through them real quick, and if you guys have questions, feel free to answer them. I tried to intentionally stay pretty broad with this stuff. I intentionally did not want it to feel punitive, like Jeff said, but then I wanted it to have the ability to be helpful to staff if needed. So to start out, we're just going to ask them to please remember some things. Follow all of our rules. Be respectful of all people. We want to treat people with respect no matter how old they are, where they're from. what their age is, what their gender is, cultural affiliation, or sexual orientation. We want to be good role models, and we want to expect people to be good role models. When you're in our buildings, please act nice and respectful. Be safe for the benefit of yourself and others. Dress appropriately in all city facilities. And that can be subjective, I know that, but usually in a public facility, things that are inappropriate are pretty glaring. And so we want to address those because we're a family-oriented organization. Respect the privacy of participants, visitors, volunteers, and employees. So this addresses not only customers, but employees. Respect the private, I said that, excuse me. Respect others, their personal belongings, their personal space. Respect public facilities, the equipment, supplies, the decor. Observe program rules and regulations at all times. Cooperate with and assist the Cupertino staff in maintaining a safe environment. We vetted all of this through the staff. I think we went through the staff twice. And because we needed to take care of the sports athletes and let them be able to use this tool. We needed the sports center to be able to use it, or the senior center, or Quinlan. So we're asking them to refrain from unsafe action that could cause harm to someone else. We want them to refrain from being disruptive or having disorderly behavior. All forms of harassment and bullying, no smoking, graffiti, vandalism, or anything that could damage city property. Being under the influence of any intoxicating substance, whether it's legal or illegal. Using profane language, teasing, ridiculing others, that ties right in with bullying. We have a zero tolerance policy with bullying. Inflicting harm on yourself or others, violating any federal, state, local statute or ordinance, possession of dangerous or unauthorized materials like firearms, illegal substances, weapons, anything like that, slingshots, pea shooters. So then at the bottom you can see where we kind of wrap it together and talk about how we're going to enforce these rules. And basically with zero tolerance. City staff may enforce immediate expulsion for violating this code of conduct. We thank you in advance for your cooperation and understanding. We seldom will get to this point. We know that, where we actually have to eject folks. There's been facilities that we've worked at in other cities where it's a daily occurrence. It's just not the case here. But these are a nice backup for staff, nice tools, gives people a good understanding of what we expect our environment to be like.
Thank you. I don't think we have any public comment, so we can just jump right in.
So Jeff mentioned, one of my questions was what the escalation process would be, and you said, I guess we're going to address that later. But I do wonder, when we say there's a strict zero tolerance, that doesn't mean there's any escalation to me. So that's kind of a contradiction. Is there a zero tolerance, or is there some sort of process?
You know, a zero tolerance, I think it's going to be on a, it depends on the thing that they do wrong. You know, if somebody hauls off and hits you in the face, we're going to immediately expulse them.
Right.
If somebody accidentally breaks a sign, we're not going to kick them out of the facility.
Right, so that's
for
where,
that.
I'm just wondering if the zero tolerance is just a
If
little
we
bit
need to
strong,
say
because it doesn't
that?
apply to everything.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It doesn't. There
Yeah.
are some things that,
We could maybe reword that if you feel like
yeah.
we need to. I think
so-
I understand what you're saying. Not everything is zero tolerance. I think that was meant to be, you know, if we need to kick you out, you're going to go.
well, and that's where, I mean, you say later, you know, city staff may enforce immediate.
Yes.
So it's not definite, but you do make the point that we're serious about this,
Yeah.
and I think we need to make that point. I mean, I've seen bad behavior at the sports center.
Yeah.
I've observed it. I've actually inserted myself into a situation that was threatening between two individuals there. And so one of the things was, you know, in looking at this, I was wondering where threatening words or behavior.
Profanity, teasing, ridiculing
It
others.
wasn't profanity, it wasn't teasing, it, harassment,
Disruptive, disorderly,
it was a pretty subtle
respect others.
show of testosterone between two individuals, just, and it was almost, one of these, I'll see you outside. I mean, that was where it was going.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
But, so I was just wondering where that would, if threatening words or behavior, it can be,
Is that unsafe action or?
it wasn't an unsafe action, it was threatening
They were
unsafe
threatening.
action, right? So you weren't already there.
Causing
All
harm to
forms
any
of
other
harassment, bullying, or taking an unfair advantage of anybody, does that apply?
They were threatening to do that. They
Disruptive.
weren't doing it, right? So, I mean, maybe it was bullying or harassment. So, I mean, that's just sort of a gradation.
Inflicting harm or threatening, inflicting harm on yourself or others? We could say inflicting harm or threatening to that
Yeah,
statement.
yes, I think
and
threatening is,
that might take care of
because
it.
that's going down a path of bad behavior.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's not the actual thing. They could say, well, I didn't do anything. Well, you threatened to, and that's not okay.
Yeah.
And so
I
we
think
want to
that's
stop
a-
it before it happens, right?
I think
We
that's a
wanna-
valid comment. And let me clarify the zero tolerance. Do you want us to leave that verbiage in there, or what's any discussion there?
I don't think we're going to enforce zero tolerance, so I'm not comfortable with it being there, because if someone hears that something happened to someone, or they were upset with something, and you gave that person a warning, they're going to come back to you and say, you say right here you have a zero tolerance policy. Why didn't you eject them? Why didn't right now? And so I can see that someone would use that in a way that if we're not going to have a complete zero tolerance,
Don't say it.
don't say it.
Well, I think that we could just cut that piece off that sentence and say, for your safety and ours, we'll be enforcing these rules.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
But there are
Yeah.
some things that should be zero tolerance.
There
Yeah,
are.
and
Well,
that's
I think-
okay. That's okay.
I think that
They will
where we
be.
say, for your safety and ours, we will be enforcing these rules strictly, period. City staff may enforce
yes.
immediate expulsion, so we still retain the option to remove the person right away, but we don't necessarily commit to zero tolerance for anybody.
Right.
I can make those.
Yeah, and
those
that,
are great points.
the gradation was just what I was looking for, because there would be some people that felt violated in some way that expect immediate expulsion based on the behavior, and as it's reviewed, it may or may not be viewed in the grand scheme of things to be that terrible. It could be, something you say, okay, it was interpreted as something that, that other people wouldn't interpret the same way. You give a warning to that person, you give some coaching, please don't do that again.
Yeah.
That's making someone uncomfortable.
Okay.
They say, I didn't think that, I didn't realize that,
Yeah.
right? And so then you work with them.
Right.
You want them to just be there.
Exactly. Okay. Good points.
Well, I guess I don't feel strongly either way, so if Carol feels very strongly, I agree with Carol. Carol
I've
is
had
a member
personal
of the Sports Center.
conversations with numerous people at the Sports Center on various behaviors, and so I've seen these things play out actually. So that's why
I actually
I
have
have some
Yeah.
particular opinions about it.
So I was just wondering, is there going to be, in my workplace, we do a lot of events all over the world, and one of the things that we do have is something similar where we will eject somebody immediately from our event if they behave in a certain way. We actually do have a list of people who have done things to people and they are not allowed to return to our event. Is there going to be some kind of internal monitoring system? So if there's somebody who's made to feel uncomfortable and they report something, and it's not, it can be something that, you give a warning, oh, please don't approach the person in that way, or that was not, kosher behavior, and then we see a repeated pattern. Is there a way that we're planning on tracking that?
Yes and no so far. The reason I say that is because although the municipal code does allow for maintaining a different set of penalties based on repeated offense And those particular administrative citations could be issued in these cases. Getting to the point where we are permanently excluding someone from a facility is, in my opinion, a fairly serious matter. And we are going to create the criteria, proposing that to City Council in a matter of a resolution to say, if we do this, these could be the appropriate consequences. And then here's the way we allow the individual and to come forward, request a hearing, that kind of thing.
Great. Thank you. That'll be good to take a look at also. And in the era of Me Too, it's important that we make sure that that's carried through. I actually, two things that did catch my attention. One is the being under the influence of any intoxicating substance. I'm actually just kind of curious as to where that came from and why it's not influence of any illegal not that I anticipate there's somebody who's going to go to a bar and then come to the sports center, but
Maybe smoking marijuana too.
I was just curious as to why that's kind of a sticking point and why it doesn't say illegal substance, because the state of California has made certain things legal, and why it's just any intoxicating substance.
In some of our activities, I see the point. In some of our activities at, say, at the sports center, that could create safety issues for the individual and for others, whereas in some of our programs, I don't know that it's quite as big a problem. Obviously, the intent is illegal substance, though.
There is another, please refrain about, in the middle, it says being under the influence of any intoxicating substance. So it frames that a little better.
That was the point that I was
okay. And then down below, it also says illegal substances.
Yeah, I was just why we needed both, just because I was like, well,
yeah,
there's some people who.
Well, because one, you're under the influence, one, you just possess it.
So I can actually duly disagree. So there's a lot of legal substances that are dangerous. If you're a senior and you're taking medication and you try to do a senior class and you keep falling or you can't do something and the trainer is worried for that person, that's a legal substance that might be. I mean, I think, there are a lot of legal substances that impair you.
Well, marijuana is a legal
and
substance.
And marijuana
and
might.
So is alcohol.
But if they think you've too much marijuana or too much alcohol or a sedative you've taken or something that might hurt you or others, they should have the ability to go to them and say, you shouldn't be in this class, you should be doing something.
Yeah, I guess the intoxicating word is what got me, so that makes a lot of sense to me. So maybe something that's being under the influence of any safety impairing substance.
Or being impaired. I mean,
Which
that's
is-
the behavior. I mean,
Yeah, so something to that. The intoxicating just seemed very targeted. And then the dress appropriately. I actually have a very big problem with the dress appropriately phrase, and I would not be comfortable passing the code of conduct with that language in it. I think that we're lucky to right now be in a community that is, accepting of different people's wellness and fitness activities. But if for whatever reason in the future that changed and there was somebody who felt like wearing shorts was not acceptable because, I come from a culture where I don't wear shorts when I go to see my family, I would really be uncomfortable leaving this open to somebody's, if it were to transition to somebody who wasn't as flexible or as open-minded, for this to become an issue, and I would like to see this removed. Now that's just my personal opinion. I can't necessarily imagine that somebody in Cupertino would be walking around and, something completely awful, but I think the
Or
appropriate.
you can actually
I disagree.
make it more specific, at least bare minimum things.
They're trying to put that in there so that they have leeway to make a decision if they need to. And, I mean, like if somebody's walking naked, that, they can use that part of the code. I mean, I personally disagree with what you're saying, so.
I can honestly say, and I've been in recreation a long time, the only time I've addressed someone's clothing was when a woman had a white T-shirt on with nothing on underneath it and it was wet. It was inappropriate in a family swim. And so it's a hard thing because you have a lot of folks that can be affected by things like that. Those are the kind of things that we look for, not how generally, I mean, people dress so many different ways. It's not an issue for us as rec staff. It's just something that's extremely inappropriate that we would address. And most likely, we wouldn't address it. We would call code and let code address it. I see where you're coming from. The perspective is different from how we look at it in a facility.
Yeah, I think it's just giving the staff leeway. I don't think the staff is going to start targeting people if they just don't like.
Yeah, and my
they're
intent is
wearing.
not my intent is not for the existing set of staff members, but you know, I think there are people who have different opinions, and I would be very uncomfortable with such a broad interpretation of what this could be to be left on this. I mean, there's a lot of movements around just even the very incident that you brought up that are talking about how that's actually not such a big deal, and there are communities and cultures where that isn't. Not saying that I necessarily encourage that for Cupertino, but I still would not be comfortable with the broad way that this is phrased for it to be on this.
Part of our reason for including that was to prevent profanity and other very offensive things that people may come and have on their clothes. But I'd point out that even if we remove that, there is another clause that catches that. It's a fine line for us because we want to protect people's right for free speech, but at the same time, we want to provide a warm family atmosphere within our facilities.
And I think that profanity and teasing and ridiculing others does, I mean, if somebody has a Borat shirt, that's not appropriate for a family gym, so.
But this is also not just in, say, sports center or something, but maybe in the preschool environment or children classes being run, park event. So there are different level of dress appropriately in each of those things. So the staff has more.
It's
I just think it's
broader to
leeway.
give them, depending on the situation, depending on the facility, the appropriateness changes a little.
It to me, it just seems like a very, I mean, we can clearly agree to disagree, but it does seem like a very flexible definition. And I'm, if there's a person who wants to wear a V-neck shirt and somebody else, or dress, and somebody's not comfortable, or a backless dress and somebody's like, oh, you can't wear that to a children's play, well, I don't think that's an appropriate call to make. And this is not a comment on the current staff by any means. This is just, it's too mushy right now for me to feel comfortable, but that's my personal opinion.
What was the other, remember, that you said covers that?
Well,
do we need both of them? All right.
So the profanity and teasing, but I think
That doesn't really, I mean, you're talking about if they wear something that's.
And these are just reminders. It's not like a rule or these are just some guidelines. It's just remember to do that.
Yeah, I think we need to give our staff
Yeah, you're giving
the staff a little bit of power if they need it. And as you said, the worst thing you did in all your 30 years, but in this charged environment, the staff, I think, you just have to trust that the staff has the right approach, and if the staff doesn't, then you deal with the staff maybe next time. But you do need to give them some leverage to make a call.
Yeah, I also think there is redress, like you say, that the person that you might decide you don't like what they're wearing has redress.
Right.
And there are other ways that person can address it
Right.
as well. So
the T-shirt person, I got her a dark T-shirt. It wasn't such an issue, and she could swim. I mean, we want folks to enjoy our facilities. We want them to feel comfortable in our facilities. Typically, it's not something we want to address. It's a tough thing to address. It has to be really, really extreme for any staff person to even want to address this. But they're right. There are issues where people might have something that's really inappropriate in a preschool class, and it's hard to explain to everybody else why it's okay for them to dress that way. Because I'll tell you, the majority of the people are not wanting those kind of things around them in this environment.
I actually have a couple questions. So Where will these be, when and if they are approved by city council? Where will they be posted?
My copy is ugly, but Branton did a great job of making this graphically beautiful. They'll be larger size than, they'll be like 11 by 14, probably framed in our facilities so that
Okay.
they look nice.
So it's like, would there be one in
At the
here?
entrance or?
Because this is community hall. so-
Right.
And I know Parks and Rec rents it out.
parks
but-
facilities.
So the parks facilities, like Quinlan.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
And just to clarify, what we'll be presenting and asking for city council approval on is the next phase, is the exclusion process, to make sure that it's fair and equitable and approved, and, we'll go through and work it as comprehensively as possible. But the code of conduct itself really is, we're looking for staff guidance tonight. And if you recommend changes and/or come to agreement on what it should look like, we'll make those changes and post it almost immediately.
So I have one more question. So, like, say someplace like the sports center where you have to sign up for a membership. Well, I guess you don't have to. You can take classes too. Would they be required to sign this at the time of signing up for membership?
No, they actually already sign a waiver. And in my research to do this, I went through their waiver to see if we were conflicting, with anything they were asking of their staff, and it all falls right into place. And I got feedback from that staff as well.
Wait a minute, I'm confused. They're not signing this.
This
So
will be a
This will be
poster on
just
the
a
wall.
display.
so why wouldn't
People
this
at the
be part
sports
of?
center
Yeah.
already sign a waiver that really includes this
Includes
stuff.
that, yeah.
It's not a code of conduct, it's part of their membership agreement.
It's a waiver to what though? I looked at what I signed at the sports center, and I couldn't find anything that said this is, I mean, it was called a code of conduct. When I paid my money, they said, please initial the code of conduct. And I did that, and then I asked for a copy of it, and it didn't say anything about behavior. So it seems to me that this should be included in that, because otherwise, how can you enforce it really? I mean, especially at the sports center, you're paying to be a member, and in exchange, this is what's expected of you. And I think in order to enforce something else, they can say, oh, I never knew. Well, if you sign up, certainly at the sports center, we have that ability, because you do pay and you sign up. And so to avoid that area of, I didn't know, nobody told me. Well, if you don't read what you signed, then that's, that's on you. If we don't ever provide it to them, that's on us, even if it's posted.
It's entirely doable. And with our new registration system that we have coming on with
There we go.
ActiveNet, you can attach anything to a registration so that they get it, that you've checked this box, you've agreed it, they get a copy of
Yeah,
it. So,
yeah.
so
And-
we
and
can
we should
incorporate
provide a
that
copy.
in our systems.
But you probably shouldn't just call out the sports center. It would be the senior center
Well,
as
I think it's, there's very few programs
Yeah.
that we would not have this there. I mean, the
Right.
sports programs for the kids, the
Right,
adults,
okay.
I think all of our programs could, do that. The trick is that in ActiveNet, when you sign up, let's say I'm somebody that signs up for 10, 12 classes a term, just because I love Parks and Recreation. That means every time I register, I'm going to get this. And that's tough. It's a ream of paperwork every time that they have to go through, depending on what we put in the system. We're still developing that, of course, because we don't have the system yet. But we do have the ability to have them do that.
Yeah.
So I
If we
think
can
it's
at least
something-
reference it,
Yeah.
and,
Read it online.
yeah, they can read it online.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
read it and
Okay.
initial it or something.
Yeah.
Just initial that they read it.
And I think
somewhere.
someplace where the sports center, where it's multi-level and different things in different areas, you'd have more than one of these posters in the building, so that people can see them. And it's easy enough to say, here's the rules.
So also, in some places it says City of Cupertino property, somewhere it says city property, city facility, or there should be some
Consistent, you think?
consistency.
Okay.
Yeah. That's another, in terms of consistency, some of them are sentences and some
Yeah,
of them
some of the
have
colon,
Sometimes
colons.
I write like I talk. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think it would be
Yeah.
cleaner if it
okay.
was
Yeah.
consistent.
I can do
Yeah.
that. So can we just summarize a little bit?
Yeah.
We're going to clean up the inflicting harm or threatening behaviors. We're going to add that. We are going to get rid of the zero tolerance and kind of rephrase that top line a little bit. And we're going to bring consistency to how we address the city as a title. City of Cupertino, Recreation Services, however we choose to make that consistent. Was there anything I missed?
Giving out the
No.
form.
And we're going to try to work a system that we can make sure everybody gets this when they register.
I am not comfortable voting this through unless there's like a, like the Supreme Court does like a minority response section that says specifically talking about this dress appropriately. If we can't include that to the city council, then that's perfectly fine. But if we can, that would be great, and then I'm happy to vote for it. But if we don't include that, and this is more of a point of order question, I don't actually know the process here.
The other option, of course, you'd have is just to ask staff to bring it back next month with the appropriate changes and something that at the same time we'll put our heads together and see if there's a way we can address the dress code part of the code of conduct so that it works for everyone.
It'll be interesting to go ask staff what they feel about that one specific question. Nobody addressed a change to that at all, and pretty much everybody has something like that, all the cities that I looked at. But, maybe the staff doesn't feel like they need it. I don't know.
Also, I was wondering if we can kind of combine, the be respectful, and then there is 4 lines down, there is respect the privacy, respect other. If they could put all the respect part together.
Instead of going respect, make it one thing.
And then kind of group them together at the beginning.
Okay.
And also,
like a little paragraph.
Yeah,
of respect.
combine it a little.
I think putting them together, but I wouldn't combine them together.
Not combine,
but
just
I would
like
put
just
them,
like
yeah,
the
that's a good
respect,
suggestion, put them
like the
together.
respect,
They're not all
one.
the same, but the respect is the same.
Okay.
Yeah, but
I'm with you.
they're like, that's one, and like kind of
A little redundant, isn't it?
rearrange the order.
Great. So, yeah, I mean, if it's up to, I prefer
I'm
to.
fine with that. I think it's a good
Make sure
suggestion.
it's That's a good okay with you
Yeah,
guys.
we all
I'm
want to
good with
feel
that.
good about it because we're going to send it on to council, so I think that's important.
If we could do that, that would be great. But this is, amazing stuff we really need, and we want to make sure is
Do we need
set
to
for
make
the
a
rest
motion
of.
for that, or not really?
No, it's going to come back to us.
Yeah, it'll come back as old business, and I think that we've got the direction that we need.
Perfect. All right.
I have
Last up.
one more
oh,
question
go
though.
ahead.
So the code, this will be displayed, and typically even if this is not displayed, people, if they have an issue, they go to the staff on duty. Is that, this is understood, or there should be some contact information, or like somebody observes something and they want to just send an email or call in a number and may not have a, satisfactory solution with the staff at the location?
I think
How can they be addressed? Could there be a contact information?
Well, I think that for this type of document, it's not that kind of document that
Okay.
says if you have a problem with somebody, go tell on them.
Yeah, no.
You know what I mean? We really don't want to put them in.
Yeah.
But I think people are pretty comfortable with the staff,
Okay.
the recreation staff in Cupertino, and they come to staff all the time
Okay.
with those kind of concerns. Then we have to rely on the staff to make a good judgment on whether they need to call more support.
Okay.
I think we do need training of staff, because a lot of times they are not observing what's going on.
Yeah, I agree.
Great. All right. Thank you very much. I know this took a lot of work and a lot of research.
Controversial.
So next up, we have staff and commission reports, and we'll start off with the director's report.
Okay. I'd like to address a number of things that are happening around the department, just to give you an update. As Kim mentioned, we are and we have begun to implement our ActiveNet transition. So in the past, the difference is we've come to you and given you little bits of information that, hey, this is coming. Well, I can tell you that it's here. and we're underway with it. We'll be giving you a full presentation next month. But I can tell you that the ActiveNet registration software does a number of things, including real-time software. It manages real-time registration, meaning that you go to sign up for a class, and online it'll tell you whether there's space for you and enroll you all completely. There's things like facility scheduling, so you can go in and you can pick a room or a park or a picnic. Permit communication with membership is easy for us to do out of this. But this particular process is going to take us up until the fall. So hopefully we'll be able to be live at some point in the fall, but prior to the holiday season. We've got our A-team on this, and they're working diligently. It's a train-the-trainer approach, so there's almost full-time work for several people for about 6 months to make it happen. It's an excellent program, though. The next thing to bring you up to speed on is that we have a fee schedule that is brought before council each year, and we sometimes make little tweaks in the fee schedule in order to make things a little more customer friendly. And one of those items, and just to let you know, because there has been some contentious moments about this, is that when a nonprofit, say, or an organization requests a facility rental, they'd like to use a room at the community center, and they'd like to use a room at the senior center, they register for each of those separately and pay deposits against those reservations separately. So if you have 4 reservations, you might end up with $2,000 in deposits. In this year's fee structure, we've recommended to council that we're able to utilize one deposit as an organization to carry over between different facilities. It's going to be a little challenging for us over the next 6 months or actually July, August, and September, or October, until ActiveNet is up. Once it's up, it'll allow us to transfer deposits easily between facilities. A little technical, but it's really, I think, a good thing. The third thing to share with you is we've told you in the past, I think, we're working on a marketing plan. Well, I am happy to report that we have a contractor now with an executed contract on board, a group called Learning Education Resource Network, who's going to be paying a visit in May and unpacking and repacking our brochure, the programs, the descriptions we write, what the background, are we diverse enough in our offerings, things like this. And then at the same time, they'll be providing us a very formal written marketing plan. In their scope of work, I've required them in the contract to come here before the commission and present their results. And so that will be happening at some point in the summer, but we're really looking forward to that. Another issue, just to let you know, or another item we've reevaluated again the Creekside Farmers Market. It's gone over its year, and I'm happy to report that we've renewed that permit again, and they'll continue what I think is an extremely successful not only market but partnership with the church that's on site there. So we're working still with our public affairs unit to create a survey that'll go around the Jollyman Park area to address the dog off-leash requests that we've had. We don't have the survey out yet. It's still in the hands of our very capable public affairs folks, and they're working through to ensure that it's fair, it's correct, it's going to get the right results. The last thing I'd mention is that next month, and I'm not sure that we've cemented the date, but we'll be looking at starting our public workshop portions of the master plan. And so we'll be doing a very targeted approach to see what we can do to gather as many people as possible. I'd like to see us talk about the population who come forward and provide input at the workshops in the hundreds instead of 20 or 30 here or there. I want to get a very robust group to have some very, very good conversation and debate over many of the issues that you've been working with. So with that said, that concludes my report for this month.
Great. Commissioner reports? Any new updates?
I'll be quick. I'll try and be quick. Okay, so I went to the Senior Center Volunteer Luncheon. That was my first time, and it just happened to fall on St. Patty's Day, so that was it was amazing. I was just like really impressed by the decorations and the entertainment, the music, the turnout. It was a wonderful event. And then yesterday I went to the mayor's meeting, so I'll try and be quick on what all the other commissions are doing. So housing, they process grants. I guess I didn't really understand what they did, but that's what they basically do is they get money and then they give it out to the community, like West Valley Community Services and Live Oak Daycare and that type of thing. So that's what they did. Sustainability is also giving out grants of about $250 to $500 that contribute to the climate action plan that Cupertino has in place, the city of Cupertino. And they're doing a speaker series in partnership with the library, and Dr. Rosalind Grimes from NASA is coming and this is in conjunction with the library, and that's she's going to talk about the intention behind the design and construction of the sustainability base at NASA. That's Thursday, April 12th from 6 to 8, and Earth Day is April 21st. Safety Commission is running, I guess with the city of Cupertino, running the first ever disaster preparedness fair, and that's on June 23rd. They're having a safety forum on October 26th. Tech Hackathon is April 14th, and they're also working on high-speed fiber. I guess they're having some of the companies come and present to them, like Verizon and Comcast. And the Teen Commission is doing the hackathon on April 14th, and then a video contest, and the topic is stress, and it's going to be like a public service announcement contest. And then Fine Arts, and I left this for last because they are talking about a performing arts center in their commission. And I said, well, we've been talking about that too. So we should definitely engage them. And they're going out, and they went to take a tour of the VPAC, and so they seem pretty interested in that. Okay, I'm done.
All right. I attended the Yak Attack. Is that what that was? Youth conference, yeah. So Nisha and I went, and we listened to the speaker, and it was quite interesting. The program was very well organized. It seemed like there were like 200 kids or 150 some youth, something like that. They were all listening very attentively to the lead speaker, and he was one of the winner of the Survivor. So he spoke well. Other than that, I was going to say, I heard that the Teen Commission, actually talking about the stress, is coming and giving a presentation at high school PTA meeting next month. Great. So yeah, and that is at Cupertino, April 24th, I think. So I'll be attending that.
Okay, I forgot, but I did attend the volunteer lunch over at the senior center. It was very nice. I actually got to go to the Big Bunny Fun Run. I didn't run, but I attended and supported the runners. It was a very well-attended event and well-organized. And shout out to my husband, who won second place in his age group. Nice. That's all I have to say.
Sorry, I was on a medical leave, so this is one of my big first nights out, and I'm really getting tired. But next month.
We're glad you're back in action. And also went to the Yak Attack conference. It was really great. Would love to circulate the list of events that we have going on and see if we can't get at least one commissioner to each of the city events and community events that are happening. So we'll be circulating that later this week. And also went to the mayor's meeting because I think that was like after the, yeah, it was last month, but it was after our meeting, where we talked about the Crest Awards, and actually went through and reviewed and voted on all of them, which was, it was very cool. But I would say that we had a lot of wonderful people apply. I do think that the next time around, we can be a little bit more involved in also helping to nominate folks. I know a couple people on this dais did, but we could get a lot more people to be nominated, given the reach we have in our community and what we see all our community members do with Parks and Recreations. I think we could get a few more people in that pipeline as well. Cool. I don't think there's anything else, so I adjourn this meeting at 9:24. Bye.
Listen to me. I am captain of the track team. And if I'm late,
She doesn't really think she's going to get out of here, does she?
be nice. She's new. Hello?